Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for letting us interrupt your social drinking. I'm sure there will be lots more of that. So as James so kindly introduced me, I'm Blaine, and yeah,
And I'm Maureen. And yeah, we're here in London working on a startup called Poeti.ca, a place to write better together.
But much to the chagrin, I think, of some of the people in the room, we're not here to pitch Poeti.ca. You won't see it. But if you'd like to corner us afterwards, you can take a peek. But we're here to talk about other altogether beautiful, joyful things.
Like rivers and pubs, websites and shoes, craft and code, people and good beer.
So who here has drunk at the Wenlock Arms? Okay. Get there. So not that many. Who's been drunk at the Wenlock Arms? About equal numbers, actually. So we love that pub. And if you haven't been or you don't know the pub, just fill in the name of your favorite local, and we'll carry on.
It happens to be a real ales pub. Some of us may have first visited the Wenlock because of that speciality. It's certainly a good reason to go there. But it's not the reason we've stayed. After all, there are better stocks of fine beers elsewhere at more artisanally focused pubs. And
conferences. But no, we keep going back to the Wenlock because it feels like our place. It's, it's the music, there's live music on Friday nights, and it's lovely. The musicians are lovely. And the people there, it just feels comfortable, and the conversations between rounds and sets and, the fine ales don't hurt. It's altogether inspiring. I know from conferences like this and from the enthusiasm of the British for pubs in general that this is not lost on you. But coming from Canada, where we basically have no pubs, they're a special thing. The community that a pub fosters in an urban space is so important because you often don't have those sorts of spaces. And it's not surprising that there's such an institution here. London's been figuring this stuff out for longer than anyone else. And it's remarkable how inspiring your local can be after a long week, and what does inspiration amount to? It's an invitation to someone to think passionately in new ways. To inspire is to cause someone to imagine and feel hopeful and part of something, and pubs do that very well.
So the imagination of our users is our company's most valuable asset. We treasure it. It's what really creates the inspiring web space that we are working hard to build. But imagination can only be sparked by inspiration suited to particular minds, those of the specific users you're after. That's why our users' imagination must actually provide the basis for what we build. User-generated, community-designed, inspiring space. We're just hosts of all that. The site and technology we build are only the shell. Just as a pub is in fact only 4 walls, a roof, and some beer. Of course, it's not just that at all. It's the life of the lives of the people. And so at Poeti.ca, we focus on building spaces, not walls. Now, our earliest blueprints conceived of just walls. They were all wrong, inspiring to us, but they didn't fit our users. Inspiring yourself is an okay way to start, because we worked through a lot of experimental thought, placing drafts of writing in the context a lot like GitHub. After all, look at the awesome advantages and social ethics encoded into Git. But in focusing on Git, we started by getting the premise of literary editing itself wrong. We luckily realized this early enough. Editing isn't changing things and then issuing pull requests. Editing doesn't need Git's kind of technologies, per se. It needs Git's kind of conversations, humane, trust-based, and joyful. That's where the inspiration of GitHub really lies.
So we moved on and we kept on blueprinting and trying new things. And from deeper experiences, talking to people who edited things and worked on, were writers, we grew to realize that editing is about trust. It's, as we've described it, it's the creatively engaged trust that constitutes imagination. So when an author receives feedback on a piece of writing, something that they've poured their soul into, something that they care very deeply about, it's too easy for that feedback to feel like an attack. So, someone says, you should change this, and you're like, but I love that, I can't change that. And so productive conversations depend on the author being able to trust that the editor is helping to make the work better. So editing is about inspired real human relationships. That's what results in an improved text. That's what results in good writing. The answer doesn't lie in technical finesse or the sort of grammar check. That matters a lot to us as well, but we've come to realize that our role is to allow space for conversation, to assist by removing blocks such as distance, time, and inconvenience from the imaginative processes that will fill our site with life. So we're trying to create this organic space, and we just need to get out of the way as much as possible. So we aim to use the technology that we know how to manipulate in order to get out of the way.
Right, editing is a trust-based conversation. We aim to put expressive editorial conversation within reach rather than behind a console. Provisioning that simple service in turn provides the basis for our own conversation with our users about what matters most to them. Because only in a space suited to their specific imagination can such conversations actually occur. Again, from that basis we mentioned of creatively engaged trust. No machine, metric, or brand expert can have that conversation for us. We're still early days, but we're fostering great conversations with our users so far. Some of what we figured out, again, editing isn't a dead-on-the-web process that needs to rise in tech. We just need to rekindle the real-world joy editors have in their craft. Their processes, as it turns out, are fun, joyful, and inspired, just as all of ours. We figured out it's so much about people laughing. Keeping that up is the only way to get there, and we're getting there tech-wise, not by worrying about what's come before, but by moving out of the way for what's to come next.
So we think carefully about the human behaviors that we want to enable, and we build technology that embraces those human behaviors. So we want we want the people that we invite into the space that we've created to shape that space. I think that's certainly true of Twitter, and we think that their experience and their actions are more important than our expectations of how Poeti.ca will be used, or this is true for anything, I think. More generally, I think we talk a lot about flow in social media, right? These streams of social data passing us by, and big data, all these sorts of things, as though they need to be contained, measured, or controlled. But it's impossible to reason about the flow of a river. You can sort of measure it, but that's about it. There's nothing intrinsically there, or to conquer its logic. But the logic of the river is exposed by the erosion of its banks over time, right? It's in the innumerable eddies that grind away at the landscape that surround the river that its past is expressed and the future created. So we don't want to capture and quantify the social activity as it flows past. We want to cradle its eddies to build for our own erosion. So at Poeti.ca, we acquiesce as coders, designers, founders, and individualists. We're trying to make Poeti.ca itself as frictionless as possible to the imaginations of the editors to give them the best chance of becoming the primary frictive. We want them to create the landscape, changing their own territory as much as possible and creating the space around them.
Rivers create and nourish valleys and deltas. There's a reason that rivers are so special to us, because they are truly holy in that they give us and everything life on the land. Or as Tim O'Reilly neatly put it, create more value than you capture. We're seeking to enable our users to build a collective whole that's so much bigger than anything we could build or even imagine ourselves. We can only be so lucky as to play a small part in enabling the creativity of our users. Or as our team refers to them, our people. People are more important than anything else. There's no substitute for good people. I think you'll all agree, just like at the Wenlock Arms. So on that, as James mentioned, or hinted at, as some of you know, and much to its people's chagrin, the Wenlock Arms is presently facing a dire fate of malpriorities and over-optimization. So basically, the old owners of the pub retired and sold on the pub, as you do, and it's been approved, in spite of vigorous community protest, that the upstairs will be converted into luxury loft living flats. Downstairs, the pub itself will, inevitably become more luxuriously up-to-date. And heritage experts have been called in to speak expertly in favor of the renovations. They've spoken to the notion that the purpose of the pub will be preserved, nay, improved upon. The Wenlock Arms will continue to focus on the provision of real ales. The experts have missed the pub for its drafts, the forest for the trees. We must not, fellow technologists, we should never do as they have done. If we focus too much on the technical purpose of the things we're building, abandoning the imagination of our people, grasping for something more perfect and controllable, we'll kill the opportunity to see what people can do when given an inspiring space of their own. In the case of the Wenlock, the people to whose imaginations the Wenlock's legacy is indebted feel betrayed. They say their presence will remain, to paraphrase the Brian Masters Trio, a band that plays there every Friday night, for as long as the pub still stands.
So, but the pub stands not in pint glasses, but in those musicians' shoes, and all the shoes that have tapped along to their music on a Friday night, stood to toast a birthday, engagement, baptism, departed friend, and so on. They are the Wenlock, full stop. They go, and so goes the inspiration. They leave us with a lesson. No matter how finely provisioned your spaces are, they are a vacuum without the imaginations that fill them. Let us build and drink to that. Thank you.
Thanks.